Hi, hello. Welcome to the episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is January the 26th, 2026. Hopefully this episode finds you well, in good spirits and high hopes. As for me, I'm doing pretty good. Happy Monday, happy Garfield Day. Hopefully you got that lasagna. Hopefully you got that lasagna on a snow day. But if not, hopefully today has been okay for you at the very least. But yes, as for me, it was a certified snow day. Also, we'll do some catch up on, Sunday, because I know I didn't record. We'll get to that. But it's kind of been a bit of a, rough weekend, even though I was snowed in and didn't do much. Kind of a bit of a survival mode. But, we made it through. We're making it through. But yeah, let's go ahead and rewind back to Sunday, and we'll kind of recap the whole Sunday into Monday. So, like I said, didn't do too much. My foot has been hurting, like I talked about in the last episode. Still been an issue, which is unfortunate, because, it wasn't able to work out that Saturday. And then, it just kept snowing and snowing and snowing, from Saturday night into, Sunday into, I guess a little bit of Monday. I'm not sure exactly when the snow stopped, but when it was all said and done, it was about, I think on average about 10 inches where I live around Cincinnati area. So we got hit pretty hard. It was pretty rough. Snow, even though we were prepared for it, talking about all week, I don't think anyone was really prepared for that level, that amount. But luckily, power held out. So that was good. I think that was like maybe my biggest concern. But I remember like all Sunday, I wanted to like go out and like, kind of get a jump on cleaning my car, keeping my car like dusted off. I figured like, hey, if I even get just one wave of it off, that'll be so much easier for the next day, for tomorrow. And anytime I actually really had the thought, I was like, I can barely like move. Like I can hobble around and that's about it. And that's very painful. So yeah, I don't think we're doing that. So most of my Sunday just consisted of me laying around, sleeping, playing a little bit of card games, watching some live streams. And that was about it. And I wanted to record, but all the news that I was looking at was pretty much just Alex Preddy and the Minneapolis shooting. I mean, obviously it's something we covered. There's been more details, but more or less it just solidifies what my thought was, that there was no need for this to have ever happened. They pretty much just executed that man for protesting and having a gun. And their defense was, oh, he had a gun. He was a domestic terrorist. He was going to use it against us. Even though he wasn't brandishing it, doing anything. So I was like, there was that. They were just talking about the ice storm in general, from Mother Nature herself. And I kind of wanted to wait for the dust to settle there. I think in terms of just from the state, at the state's level, I think 2 people I know have died. But outside of that, I really haven't heard of anything else. I know there was a lot of power outages, a lot of delayed, canceled flights. Actually, our first story is going to be somewhat weather related, I think. Had something to do with what happened. But yeah. So those were the 2 main stories that I was seeing. Really not much else to really cover. So I was like, let's just hang out. Let's just hang out and deal with this foot thing and just kind of relax and get some R&R for whatever that was worth. But yeah, overall, it was a solid Sunday. Nothing to really complain about outside of the foot. We started the next day, and I looked at my phone, and I saw, okay, they are delaying work till 12. But I had already decided to myself, I was like, yeah, with the weather the way it is, I'm in my foot, not to mention, I'm just going to call off. Like, that just is what it is. I later find out that we actually canceled the whole day. The whole warehouse didn't even open, I guess, or they closed it down, whatever, which is the good call. It's a good call. I was actually almost surprised that they did that, but that's definitely a good thing. So W for my warehouse. There you go. Hopefully everyone was, safe getting there and back if they did attempt to go to work, because that was crazy. But yeah, so I figured, hey, all right, it's Monday now. Let's, actually tough it out. Let's go outside and see if we can get our car, freed up and ready to go. Because you already know where I'm trying to go. Longtime listeners know where am I trying to go. I'm trying to get my pump. I'm trying to go to the gym. And you're like, what do you mean? Doesn't your foot still hurt? Yes, it does. But it doesn't matter. Like, look, I've had worse injuries, where I felt like my back was just like torn asunder. I don't care. I took a day off for this. So like the fact that I had to wind up, with the weather and my foot more or less 2 days off of the gym. No, I don't care. We're going to find a way. That's what we're doing. So I took my shovel, took my little snow, scraper. I'm like, let's get to work. So I think it took about maybe 30, 45 minutes to get my car out. There was another person who was out there who just decided like, hey, I need help and I need to use your shovel. And look, I'm totally down, but this is me being maybe a little bit of an asshole. But like, person didn't even ask. He just started like using it. I'm like, man, you're lucky I like you, bro. Like, it's cool. I was like, you're welcome. But anyway, I had to wait on him a little bit, but overall felt like I was pretty efficient. And, luckily it was like soft snow. So I was really worried that it was like going to be ice and it would like really be packed in and nasty, hard to get off. But generally it was just pretty easy, pretty light to just like, scoop it all around. So free my car up. I was like, cool. I think there was like a snow warning advisory till like noon. I think for me, it had been around 10 o'clock at that point. So I was like, all right, we're going to chill, relax, then go to the gym. Now, this expedited my clock a little bit. I'm chilling and I'm getting ready to go get some coffee. And I'm like, let me use the restroom real quick. Let me use the bathroom. And I go to the bathroom and I'd kind of noticed this problem last night, but in my weird, hazy fugue state of being in pain and like coming out of naps and whatever, I was like, the floor is wet. That's strange. But then it like would kind of dry up, I think, like with like, I guess, cooling, like it being so cold. I wasn't really running the heat outside of my room. I don't know. And I was like, okay, so it's not so bad. But then I noticed like, no, because I cleaned it up. I was like, whatever. Oh, there's like puddle here. It's like a puddle across the bathroom. What's going on? And I realized there was some kind of leak happening. And I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. So I call my landlord and they say, okay, we might be able to send somebody out to check on it today. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. So I kind of was like, all right, I need to go to the gym now. Like, I just need to get this out of the way. I don't want to have to be stuck waiting for these people to come. I'd rather just get that done as soon as possible. And, then I can spend the rest of the day waiting or whatever. So I decided, hey, let's go to the gym now. So we get in, we get in the car, go to the gym. And luckily the roads weren't too bad. Definitely a little but once we got on the main road, hunky-dory, A-okay. I get to the gym. The gym is not packed, which is nice, especially for a Monday. Usually it's packed, right? I get through all of my weight training pretty easily. I will say I was a little bit timid and worried about like doing squats and some deadlifts just because, that does require my legs, which does require my feet. And I was like, oh, how he's going to go. Overall, okay, but, noticed, bit of awkwardness. Honestly, my biggest thing is like taking off my shoes. Like that's become such a comfort thing. It's easier for me to like lock in and like do my squats, do my deadlifts without shoes. So the fact that like my foot hurts too much to take my shoe on and off, I was like, yeah, that's a little annoying, but overall it was fine. And not to mention too, I did notice like it was a little bit harder to pick up the weights, move the weights, because it's been a couple days. That was like my first time taking that much time off. A little icky feeling, but overall fine. So we get all the weight training done, and I was like, I know I can't do cardio, but God, I want to. And so I was like, I'm gonna try the Stairmaster, and I hobble on up into the Stairmaster, and I press it. And I just start trying for like not even 2 minutes. And I feel pain. And I know that I'm doing the thing where there's no way that I'm actually using my leg. Like that's going to be the only way I'd get through this 15 minutes is if I'm like hopping on the other foot it's just not worth it. And I'm going to be in pain. This isn't a good move. This isn't a good look. It's not worth it. So I'm just on my fat chungus life era. I'm just going to be gaining a little bit of weight until my foot feels better, because I just don't think this is going to be something that's even going to be back to 100 in like a few days. And I know, doctor, we'll see maybe towards the end of the week. But yeah, I've had problems like this before. Usually when it gets to this level, I just kind of know that for at least about a week, I'm just going to not be moving the same way. And it sucks that it's going to affect my workouts like that, but so it goes, so be it. So yeah, a bit disheartening in that regard, but in every other way, I was able to get back at it, so that feels good. So yeah, I went to Walgreens after that. I needed to pick up some more Advil, because I've just been like just curbing that stuff. So yeah, we got that. I got a little bit of candy, which also leads me to a candy review, a little food review. The Twix Snickerdoodle. I got a little 2-pack of those. So good, actually, very good. If you are a Snickerdoodle enjoyer, I would say try. Granted, it's not going to beat an actual factual Snickerdoodle, but like it does the thing that makes me quizzically happy every time I bite into a Snickerdoodle. Like, man, what are you about? Like, yes, I know you're supposed to be a cookie, Snickerdoodle, but like it's like you're a cookie made by an alien. I don't know. There's just something so fascinating and yummy about it. And not my favorite cookie for sure, but I do love a good Snickerdoodle. It's always nice. I believe they're in the same bracket as sugar cookies. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong, bakers. But I don't like sugar cookies. I love a Snickerdoodle though. So anyway, just wanted to put that out there for the review. But yeah, that has been my day. Finally got a little bit of a stretch in. That was nice after a couple days. Like I said, I really let myself go. I'm also like not weighing myself until I get back to full cardio, because I just know I'm a whale right now. I'm not with it right now. So it was nice to kind of get closer to normal. So we'll see what tomorrow brings in that regard, But yeah, we're pretty much all caught up now. We did some research and stuff and whatnot for, of course, today. Got some news on the table. So yeah, let's go ahead and do our startup and let's get into some news. Oh, man. I will say it was nice to relax, and at least not have, any responsibilities, too much to worry about, have food. Once again, can't stress enough. I'm really glad, really blessed that the power stayed on the whole night and, everything like that. I mean, yes, we got a leaky toilet or whatever, but hey, at least it's not like so active that like it's flooding. It looks like as of right now, it's just something that's being held up with the towel. So, we'll see, because I did notice that they did come by and at least check it. So hopefully I'll get an update and I'll be able to, hopefully have a fix in the near future, but I'll keep y'all posted on that. Of course. Knocking on wood too. Also, I want to check a story real quick. So bear with me here. Oh, so yeah. Okay, so we actually do have a boat watch thing. I'm actually just splicing this into the story, or for the story lineup. I'm going to read a headline here. From CNN. U.S. military says 2 killed in Eastern Pacific boat strike with 1 survivor. The U.S. military conducted a strike against another alleged drug trafficking boat in the Eastern Pacific Ocean on Friday, killing 2 people with 1 survivor, according to U.S. Southern Command. On January 23rd, at the direction of Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Joint Task Force Southern Spear conducted a lethal kinetic strike on a vessel operated by designated terrorist organizations, Southcom wrote on X. Excuse me. All right, sorry. I just wanted to highlight that real quick, too. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and start with our Main story. Here we go. Here we go. Also from CNN. 7 dead, 1 seriously injured in plane crash at airport in Bangor, Maine. FAA says 7 people were killed and 1 person was seriously injured in Sunday's crash in Sunday's crash of a private jet in Bangor, Maine, according to a preliminary report from the Federal Aviation Administration. The jet crashed during takeoff Sunday evening. The report indicates the person injured was a crew member on board. Emergency crews responded to an incident around 7:45 p.m. Bangor International Airport told CNN. The FAA report says the aircraft crashed under unknown circumstances on departure, came to rest inverted, and caught fire. Both the AAA and both the FAA, both the FAA and the National Transportation Safety Board are investigating. The plane is a Bombardier Challenger 650 business class and is registered to a limited liability corporation in Houston, according to federal records. The crash happened as a massive snowstorm tore through the Northeast. Temperatures were well below freezing in Maine, with light snow causing very low visibility. Minutes before the crash, controllers and pilots at Bangor Airport can be heard talking about low visibility and de-icing, though it's not immediately clear who is talking to whom, according to audio obtained from liveatc.net. Nearly 2 minutes later, let me start here. A controller clears the pilot for takeoff on Bangor's runway 33. Nearly 2 minutes later, a controller loudly radios, "All traffic is stopped on the field. All traffic is stopped on the field." Moments later, another controller is heard saying, "Aircraft upside down. We have a passenger aircraft upside down." The aircraft is then the airport is then closed, and emergency vehicles are allowed to drive on the airfield. NTSB investigators plan to travel to Bangor, but due to the weather, it is difficult to predict when that will be, a spokesperson told CNN Monday morning. However, Jose Saavedra, the Bangor Airport director, told reporters at a news conference Monday the NTSB said they expect to have a team of investigators on site later in the afternoon. So yes, obviously a very sad and unfortunate situation. I'm not sure how much this has to do with the weather in terms of what caused this, but it doesn't seem to be a big factor. But how, just from the runway, the plane goes from being right side up and, trying to get ready to go to upside down and on fire. That's obviously very crazy. It's very sad. But yeah, story I imagine we will be coming back to. But obviously condolences to the people who had to go through that. Obviously very sad. And like I said, the 2 people that I noted who had died, over the weekend from, during the ice storm or snowstorm, throughout America. I don't know the locations, but I know that the cause of death was hypothermia. So, but yeah, any more of those, kind of situations, incidents, probably come back to mention throughout the week. But yes, let's go ahead and move on to our next story coming out of Mexico, but from the BBC. Gunmen storm Mexico football pitch and kill at least 11 people. At least 11 people were killed and another dozen injured when gunmen opened fire on locals who had gathered at a football pitch in the city of Salamanca in central Mexico on Sunday. Witnesses said armed men arrived at the grounds in several vehicles and shot at those gathered there seemingly indiscriminately. Many of the families had stayed behind to socialize after a match between local clubs. At least 1 woman and 1 child were among those killed. The motive behind the shooting is not yet clear. Guanajuato, the state in which Salamanca is located, registered the highest number of murders in the whole of Mexico last year. Neighbors reported hearing at least 100 shots ring out as the gunmen opened fire at the Cabanas pitch in the Loma de Flores neighborhood. Local and federal security forces are now investigating the deadly shooting. It came just a day after several violent incidents in the city in which a total of 5 men were killed and another was abducted. Guanajuato has seen a spike in violence committed by a number of gangs that engage in the theft of oil and fuel, as well as other criminal activities such as drug trafficking and extortion. Gang members frequently hold up tanker trucks carrying oil and tap oil pipelines belonging to state-run oil company Pemex. Salamanca, which is home to a major Pemex refinery, has been particularly subjected to violent gang-related attacks. Analysts say that the rivalry between Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJ&G, and the Cartel de Santa Rosa de Lima, CSRL, is behind many of the most brutal incidents. Then they kind of go to a bit of a foray, just kind of talking about, state of Mexico and gangs, relationship with U.S. and Mexico and all this, yada. Really just wanted to focus more or less on, the people killed in in the football pitch situation. Obviously very sad. Condolences there. Definitely very bummer to cover these kind of stories. But, it's definitely worth telling. And, anytime I do get more information, more details, I like to kind of come back and, update and elaborate if we do get to figure out, what was the motivations or causes for any of this shit. But, no matter what, it's going to wind up being something senseless. I know that. But yeah, it's just definitely worth noting, I feel like. And trying not to, just let it be something that's a blip on a radar. I don't know. I feel like that's at least something I can do. I know it's not fucking much. But anyway, let's move on to our next story. Take a quick water break. But it's coming from ABC News. Interpol arrests more than 3,700 suspects in global trafficking crackdown. All right. A global crackdown on human traffickers and migrant smugglers coordinated by Interpol led to the arrest of more than 3,700 suspects and aided over 4,400 potential trafficking victims around the world, the law enforcement organization said Monday. Interpol said 14,000 officers carried out Operation Libertera 3 between November 10th and November 21st. The operation across 119 countries resulted in 3,744 arrests, the protection of 4,414 potential victims, and the detection of 12,992 people caught in illegal migration schemes. Authorities opened at least 720 new investigations, according to the agency, headquartered in France, that helps police in 196 member countries collaborate to fight international crime. Criminal networks are evolving, exploiting new routes, digital platforms, and vulnerable populations. Interpol Security General Valdisi, I'm totally going to train wreck this name, sorry, Urquiza, we're going to say Urquiza, said in a statement, identifying these patterns allows law enforcement to anticipate threats, disrupt networks earlier, and better protect victims. Interpol highlighted cases involving South Americans and Asians in Africa, saying there appeared to be an emerging change in human trafficking that contrasts with past patterns of African victims being trafficked abroad. Trafficking scams remained a serious concern, with migrants intercepted from dangerous routes along the coast of Senegal, Guinea-Bissau, Morocco, and Algeria, and land networks in Peru, Brazil, and other countries, Interpol said. Authorities in West and Central African countries of Benin, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Senegal, and Sierra Leone reported law enforcement action that rescued more than 200 victims and disrupted multiple recruitment and exploitation hubs. Victims in Africa often are recruited through the pretext of foreign employment. Traffickers charge high fees, and force victims to recruit friends and family in exchange for improved conditions, furthering a pyramid scheme model, Interpol said. A 2025 cybercrime crackdown in Africa led to the arrest of 1,209 suspects who targeted 88,000 people. In Asia, authorities discovered 450 workers in a single raid on a compound in Myanmar, Interpol said. So, this is a big bust. I tend to find these Interpol busts a little bit more interesting than like any individual country, just because they can kind of, it's like one of those things where it just happens in like a very international, worldwide level, and it's just like boom, 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 all these kind of pieces kind of come together. But yeah, I mean, in the same way, these kind of operations usually yield about the same kind of result. It's very much flash in the pan, it's very flashy, maybe you get some pictures, you get these kind of articles. Cool, awesome, but does this really change the landscape of things that much? No. But it is a big bust. It is a big thing. It's casting a wide net and getting a lot of people. And I will say, I think definitely the most important thing is like you are helping a lot of victims, people who are coming through the system trying to get from point A to point B, and they literally are abused and have to go through the worst kind of trauma, the most, tumultuous like situations. It's not fair. It's not right. It's not what you're supposed to be doing. But also it's like, yeah, sometimes these are the only ways because going to legal routes, legal channels are impossible. You can't. And you got to get out sometimes, once again, as soon as possible to kind of make money for your family or whatever, insert reasons here. So that's why these routes and these systems are always happening and coming up. And essentially Interpol's like, yeah, we busted those out. Yeah, isn't that so good? We're helping so many victims. Hey, that's great. But also, we're just kind of swirling it out here and, not really changing much because the systems at play kind of keep recreating the need and necessity for it all. But anyway, that's all for another podcast, right? I kind of told myself that's not the point. You should really just kind of talk about the article at hand. Let's not, dig into the iceberg here. But hey, whatever. I couldn't help myself. I got the itch. Anyway, we have one more story that I wanted to cover. I actually don't want to get too into the weeds about it, so we're not even going to read the whole thing. At least it's not the plan. So let's go ahead and take our last break, and we'll go ahead and close it out with a story or an article from The Guardian. But yeah, it's last break time. Let's kick back one more time. One more again. Ooh. All right. China's top general under investigation for alleged violations amid corruption crackdown. China's military leadership is in turmoil after its most senior general, a close ally of Xi Jinping, was placed under investigation for suspected serious violations of discipline and law. Zhang Zhuza is the joint vice chairperson of the Central Military Commission, or the CMC, the ruling body of China's People's Liberation Army, PLA, second only to Xi in the military command structure. Zhang has long been seen as the Chinese president's closest military ally. The Defense Ministry announced on Saturday that Zhang and Lu Jinli, chief of staff of the CMC's Joint Staff Department, were under investigation. Now, this is big deal. It's big news. But I would rather wait until we are talking about, okay, they've been found guilty, or maybe they retire, maybe they don't even retire, they just disappear, or they just whatever, they leave and we don't see from them. Then I feel more compelled to talk about the stories and then the speculation really dive fully in, right? But until then, we don't know. I don't want to be like, oh, this is another coup sweep from Xi Jinping to try to, maintain his balances the way he wants. And, he deems that this person maybe is a little bit not on board or not going, but these are always speculative. We never know. We just are kind of assuming from the outside looking in. It's some analyst telling me that, which makes me feel compelled to tell you that. Like, that's usually how that fucking shit happens. So no, I don't know. I'd much rather wait to see what kind of dust clears. Maybe see, and that might help me determine what's valid, what's not valid, or at least, what feels that way, right? I don't know. But like I said, either way, it was worth mentioning, and I liked this article from The Guardian. It does a good job of explaining who Zhang is, how he got established and all that. But once again, I don't really want to get into these big details, and then it's like, actually, everything's fine, whatever, he's just still in his position. It could be that. Most likely not. Most likely it's going to be resolved one way or another. He loses his spot or whatever. But once again, we'll just wait until we can actually put a period on the sentence before I, fully go all in. That makes sense? Save us all some time. Anyway, but by all means, if you would like to get into those juicy, juicy details, then by all means go for it. And then we can talk about it. I would love that. I always like being able to talk about the news with my friends. That's always cool. It's always dope. Anyway, but that's it. That's all I have for today. If you'd like to help out, support the effort, I do have a Patreon, patreon.com. So Isaiah News. Become a newsie today. Free ways to hit me up, IsaiahNews1@gmail.com. Feel free to follow me or the podcast on any of the socials. Subscribe to the YouTube, follow on TikTok, follow on Spotify, follow on Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to listen. Let's see, leave a like, leave a cool comment. Sharing is caring. 5 stars on Spotify, 5 stars on Apple Podcasts are always appreciated. But you don't have to do any of that. You don't have to do none of those things. I always appreciate just giving me the opportunity to yap and, letting me play in your speaker, letting me play in your headphones. It's always appreciated. So, yeah. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for being a friend. And hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye-bye. Mwah.